Most people live by responding to the world as it already is. They look at what others are doing, what society is demanding right now, and they run to fill that demand. It feels safe because there is proof. If everyone is buying coffee shops, let me open one too. If everyone is rushing into a certain job, let me pursue that career. But this path is always crowded. The rewards are small, the competition is endless, and the result is mediocrity. If you want to do something extraordinary, if you want to create wealth, freedom, and impact, you have to learn to anticipate desire before it exists. That means creating what people will crave tomorrow, not what they're asking for today. The truth is that society rarely knows what it really wants until someone shows it. Nobody was walking around asking for a light bulb. They wanted better candles, brighter flames, cleaner oil lamps. Edison didn't respond to the request for a better candle. He redefined the request entirely. Nobody asked for a personal computer. People were comfortable with typewriters and filing cabinets. But when the first PC appeared, suddenly they became indispensable. Nobody was crying out for a search engine that could index the entire internet. People didn't even know what indexing the internet meant. Yet when Google appeared, it didn't just meet a demand, it revealed a new human need that had been invisible before. Anticipating desire requires imagination. It requires you to see around the corner of history. It is not about predicting with certainty, it's about sensing the trajectory of change and placing yourself slightly ahead of it. Look at how technology, culture, and human behavior evolve. Ask yourself, if this trend continues, what will people want that they cannot articulate today? Right now, for example, people are talking about artificial intelligence. But what are the hidden desires beneath that? Maybe it's not just automation, maybe it's trust, maybe it's deeper understanding, maybe it's liberation from tedious thought, work. The real opportunity is not in echoing the present hype, but in asking, once this technology matures, what desire will it unlock? When you anticipate desire, you're not reacting, you're inventing, but you don't invent from nothing. You invent by listening carefully to the whispers of dissatisfaction. People rarely say, I wish I had this entirely new thing. Instead, they complain about friction, about things being slow, expensive, confusing, or painful. Beneath every complaint lies a hidden opportunity. The great entrepreneurs of history didn't just hear the words, they heard the silence behind the words. They interpreted the dissatisfaction not literally, but at a deeper level. Customers wanted faster horses. What they really needed was a car. To cultivate this ability, you have to step outside the noise of the present. Most of us are so caught up in copying each other that we never see beyond the obvious. That's why unique knowledge matters. When you combine your own curiosity, your personal obsessions, and your unique perspective, you notice problems that others overlook. A doctor who loves software might anticipate telemedicine before it's obvious. A teacher who is passionate about games might see how to reinvent education with interactive worlds. These insights don't come from following the crowd, they come from standing at the edge of two different worlds and noticing the gaps between them. Anticipating desire is also an act of courage. It means building something when there is no applause yet, when society may even laugh at you. People laughed at the first automobiles. They dismissed the early internet as a toy. They thought cryptocurrency was a scam. To create something ahead of its time, you must tolerate skepticism. You have to believe more in your vision than in the crowd's judgment. The crowd, by definition, is always late. If you wait for permission, you will arrive when the opportunity has already been harvested. The rewards for getting this right are enormous. When you give society something it doesn't yet know how to get, the demand becomes infinite the moment people recognize it. Suddenly, your creation is not competing in a crowded market, it is defining a new one. This is how wealth is generated at scale. This is how legacies are built. You are no longer just another provider. You are the one who shifted the horizon of possibility. So the practice is simple, but not easy. Pay attention to frustrations, pay attention to the little what-ifs that cross your mind but seem too strange to voice, pay attention to the patterns of progress around you, and then, instead of waiting for the world to ask, take the risk of giving it something it never imagined. Because once you do, society will look back and say, of course, this was inevitable. How did we ever live without it? And the truth will be that it was not inevitable. It was the product of someone daring to anticipate desire before it existed. Every person carries a combination of knowledge, experience, and curiosity that is entirely unique. No one else has walked your exact path, read the same books, endured the same struggles, or obsessed over the same questions. That mix is your edge, your fingerprint in the world. Yet most people bury it. They trade their individuality for conformity, their specific knowledge for generic credentials. They chase what looks safe: titles, degrees, job descriptions, while ignoring the rare perspective that only they can bring. But real wealth and impact come from leveraging unique knowledge, not from following a map that someone else drew. Unique knowledge is not something you can be trained for in a standard way. Universities, schools, and corporations are designed to create repeatable skills, predictable outputs, replaceable workers. That is their purpose, scalability through sameness. But the irony is that what creates extraordinary value is precisely the opposite: non-repeatable insight. The world rewards originality disproportionately. The first person to see a new truth, a new pattern, or a new solution is rewarded far more than the 1,000 who follow. That is why cultivating your specific knowledge matters. It cannot be copied, it cannot be automated, it cannot be outsourced. Think about the great innovators and creators. Steve Jobs didn't just know technology, he fused it with an obsession for design and human psychology. Elon Musk didn't just study physics, he combined it with storytelling, marketing, and an ability to mobilize talent. Naval himself didn't just invest money, he understood the philosophy of leverage, technology, and networks. Their impact did not come from generic skills. It came from fusing their quirks, their curiosities, and their obsessions into something that no one else could quite replicate. The question is not what is valuable right now. The question is what can only I see because of the way I think, live, and learn. To answer that, you have to pay attention to what feels effortless to you but difficult for others. Maybe you naturally grasp patterns in numbers. Maybe you have an intuitive sense for human behavior. Maybe you see connections between art and science, or between philosophy and business. These are clues. Your unique knowledge is hiding inside your fascinations. Most people dismiss their fascinations as hobbies, but hobbies often point to the frontier of your individuality. What looks like play to you may look like work to everyone else. That's where leverage is hiding. When you leverage unique knowledge, you also avoid competition. Competition is a sign that you're working in a crowded space, doing something many others can do. If you're running the same race as everyone else, even winning is exhausting. But if you create your own race, you can't lose. You don't have to be the best in the world at one thing. You can be the only one in the world who combines 3 or 4 things. That intersection is where uniqueness blooms. The best careers are portfolios of skills that seem unrelated but converge into something rare. A doctor who codes, a lawyer who writes beautifully, an engineer who understands storytelling. The combination is more valuable than any single skill. Leverage also means scale. When you apply unique knowledge through technology, media, or capital, the effects compound. A book written from your perspective can reach millions. Software coded with your insights can replicate endlessly. An investment informed by your world, you can multiply beyond what you alone could build. But without the foundation of specific knowledge, leverage is wasted. Leverage amplifies uniqueness, but it cannot create it. You have to bring the raw material of originality and then let leverage scale it. The world will try to pull you away from your uniqueness. Employers want you to fit a mold. Friends may encourage you to do what is safe. Even your own fear will whisper that it's better to follow than to invent. But every hour you spend ignoring your specific knowledge is an hour spent building someone else's dream instead of your own. Courage lies in trusting that your odd combination of skills, curiosities, and experiences has value, even if no one else sees it yet. The paradox is that once you do it, everyone else will say it was obvious. They'll tell you, of course you were meant to do this, of course this was the path, but it won't be obvious while you are walking it. It will feel lonely, uncharted, uncertain. That is the nature of unique knowledge. It cannot be validated in advance. It only proves itself in hindsight, so the task is simple, though not easy. Stop imitating, pay attention to what pulls at you, lean into the subjects you could read about endlessly, the problems you return to even when no one is watching. Refuse to bury your individuality in the noise of conformity, because when you finally combine and express your unique knowledge, society rewards you beyond measure. Not only in wealth, but in freedom, the freedom to live as yourself, to work on what you love, and to create what only you could have created. That is leverage. That is where individuality turns into destiny. Most people live as if life is a zero, some game. They assume that if someone else gains, they must lose. They look at wealth, success, or recognition as a fixed pie. If your slice is bigger, mine must be smaller. This is the thinking that leads to envy, politics, and endless competition. But the truth is, most of the real progress in the world doesn't come from zero, some struggles. It comes from creating value that didn't exist before, value that everyone can share in. The secret to building lasting wealth, freedom, and meaning is to create nons, ero, some value, where your success is tied to the success of others, where growth multiplies instead of subtracts. You can see this principle in the greatest inventions and industries. When the internet was created, it didn't take something away from people. It gave billions of people connection, knowledge, and opportunity that never existed. When smartphones appeared, they didn't steal, they expanded human capacity. Now almost anyone can start a business, learn a skill, or communicate globally from a device in their pocket. That's nons, ero, sum. The value grows for everyone, and the creator of that value is rewarded massively because society recognizes the abundance that has been unlocked. Contrast that with status games. Status is inherently zero, sum. If I am ranked higher, someone else must be ranked lower. That's why status-driven environments, politics, gossip, hierarchies are filled with conflict and negativity. They are based on the illusion that success is relative, but wealth, ideas, and creativity are not relative. They are positive, sum. If you create a useful product, both you and the people who use it benefit. If you share knowledge, both you and your audience are better off. This is the difference between fighting for power and creating value. The former divides, the latter multiplies, creating nons, ero. Some value requires a shift in mindset. Instead of asking, how do I take a bigger share of what exists? Ask, what can I create that didn't exist before? Instead of competing for recognition, ask, how do I contribute something so useful that recognition becomes inevitable? The people who build great fortunes and legacies are those who stop trying to outcompete others and instead focus on expanding the pie. That's why technology entrepreneurs, artists, and inventors are rewarded so disproportionately. They bring into the world something that lifts everyone, not just themselves. The beauty of this approach is that it often relies on infinite goods. Knowledge, code, art, media, these are not like physical resources. If I share an idea with you, I still have it. If I give you knowledge, we both become richer. When software is written, it can be replicated infinitely at near zero cost. When a book is published, it can inspire millions without losing its essence. These are non-rival goods, and when you create with them, you naturally build nons, ero, some value. The leverage of the modern world, technology, media, capital, allows these goods to scale globally. That's why one person with a laptop and insight can impact millions. Of course, creating nons, ero, some value is harder than competing for zero, some scraps. It requires imagination, patience, and courage. It's easier to fight for a promotion than to invent a new business. It's easier to tear down others than to build something original, but the rewards reflect the difficulty, a life spent in zero. Some battles leaves you bitter, envious, and exhausted. A life spent creating positive, some value leaves you wealthy, respected, and fulfilled, because when you give the world something new, the world gives back in ways you couldn't have predicted. Look closely at the people you admire most, and you'll see this pattern. The great builders, teachers, and creators didn't spend their lives tearing down others or playing small competitive games. They created abundance. They turned personal insight into universal value. They shifted humanity forward a little bit. And in doing so, they found freedom, not just financial, but intellectual and spiritual. They escaped the trap of envy and became players in a different kind of game altogether. So if you want to live an extraordinary life, stop playing games where someone has to lose for you to win. Stop chasing status, stop competing for fixed prizes, stop resenting the success of others. Instead, ask yourself daily, what can I build, share, or create that multiplies value? Where is there something missing that, once created, would benefit not only me, but everyone else? The more you align your actions with this question, the more leverage you will find, and the more wealth, both internal and external, you will create. In the end, society rewards the builders, not the fighters. Fighters may win today, but the builders win for generations. By creating non-zero, some value, you play the only game worth playing, the game where everyone can win and where your victory is measured not by what you took, but by what you created. That's the real path to abundance.